Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. This is episode 113. My name is Gautam. His name is Mason. And today is the start of the second half of the season, not the mathematical half point of the season. We're already past that. But second half is usually marked by the end of the All-Star break, and All-Star break behind us, Home Run Derby behind us. We've just got about 11 more weeks of baseball in what's been an really interesting season for me. A lot of surprise teams that we're going to get into here. The intrigue of the Shohei Ohtani situation, and then some really interesting statistical feats that may be achieved this season that I think we're going to get into as we go forward here. How's it going for you, Mason?
Terribly.
Terribly?
Yeah, terribly. It has been recently publicly stated that the Cardinals are in fact selling, which makes a lot of sense, but it's not something that's ever happened in my lifetime. Well, yeah, that's not true. It's not something that has happened within the last 15 years.
That you've been the baseball fan that you are today to understand what that means exactly. Yeah. But the thing about the Cardinals rebuild, it's not really a rebuild. It's just a sell-off for this season. Like, they're obviously expected to compete for next season. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, 100%. It's still weird, and we'll get a little bit more into that here in a bit. But outside of that, though, I'm doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two parts. You got to keep them separate sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got like life and baseball cards, and then I've got Cardinals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, heck, I'm wearing a Cincinnati Reds hat as we speak. So if that tells you anything.
Okay, so I want to start off with Shohei.
Hold on.
What?
I just love that incredibly awkward pause. You just kind of stare at me for a minute. Okay, just move right on.
Sometimes you just got to keep going.
Segues are not your thing.
Not really, no.
Sorry, that was funny. I had to poke fun at it.
Okay. So that was awful. That was such a bad segue. Shohei Ohtani. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about the Angels. The Angels had a really rough weekend, especially on Sunday night, where they had a 7-2 lead going to the late innings. They brought in their closer, Carlos Estevez, with the 5-run lead in the 8th. He ended up giving up a 2-run homer to Chas McCormick. And then in the 9th, they just completely lost it with Jaime Barria pitching. Alex Bregman hit a huge bomb, and Kyle Tucker hit a homer. So Astros beat the Angels there on Sunday night. And recently, the Angels have just been struggling in a huge way. They were kind of treading water, staying competitive, and then heading into the break, they just completely faded, and it continued into this first weekend after the break to the point where they are now 46 and 48, and they're 9 games back in their division. They've got a bunch of teams to climb in the wild card race. It's not looking good for the Angels.
Yeah. Real quick on that game in particular, have they not watched the movie Major League? Don't they know if you put someone named Carlos Estevez remotely near a mound, he's going to be wild and things aren't going to go right?
Yeah, they should have watched that movie.
Are we sure that this Carlos Estevez isn't actually also Charlie Sheen?
Yeah, he was kind of pitching like Charlie Sheen probably would have yesterday.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this Angels team, it's so weird because this felt like the year that the Angels were actually going to be good, and they were for a while. Trout was healthy, Ohtani was healthy, pitching and hitting well. Trout was doing Trout things. You had Zach Neto, who came up and was being really, really productive. You had Hunter Renfroe was playing incredibly well. You still didn't have Rendon, but whatever. You had Logan O'Hoppe, the rookie backstop of the future, and everything looked like it was going finally the way that it needed to go for the Angels. You were seeing really good pitching performances out of Patrick Sandoval and out of Reed Detmers and obviously Shohei. And then everything kind of went back to how it's been the last couple of years. Rendon, suspended, hurt again, whatever, he's gone.
Back hurt again, yeah. Honestly, I feel horrible for Angels fans because this year it seemed like they had a lot more depth, and then they just got hit by the injuries really extremely hard.
Logan O'Hoppe done for season.
O'Hoppe.
Neto out. Then you lose Trout. And then now Shohei's been fighting through different injuries to his finger. The same finger. He cracked the fingernail, which makes it a little bit difficult to grip. It's just painful. Then he got a blister on it the next game. And then the next game, he had something else that was going on with it, with that same finger. And so he had 3 kind of not so great pitching performances in a row that are all related to that. He's playing through it, but he can't really continue to just carry the team on his own. And this year, it's not Art Moreno and Perry Manassian's fault, per se. Like, I actually don't think there's any blame for them this season, really, at all. It's just luck of the injury is what it is. Like, in how do I want to say that? If those injuries hadn't happened, maybe everything would have still blown up and we would have been blaming Perry and Artie Moreno, but that's not what happened. You can't really assume that things would have gone one way or the other had everyone been healthy. So unfortunately for Angels fans, the one year that you probably want to blame those two is the one year that you can't, and you're still getting hosed.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just looking so bleak. They picked up like Mike Moustakas and Eduardo Escobar, but they've got guys like Trey Cabbage, Michael Stefanik on their roster. It's like, what has gone wrong? I mean, the injured list, like, just to repeat the guys that are on it: O'Hoppe, Max Stassi, Rendon, Brandon Drury, who's been really good for them this year.
Max Stassi's on the IL too?
Yeah, so they're down 2 catchers.
So who's catching for the most part? The Tice?
Matt Tice and Chad Wallach.
Okay. Oddly enough, that's actually not the worst options.
Yeah, and that's to your point about them not. We can't blame the management for this one so much because they actually assembled like a pretty solid team. I think they just got hit extremely hard by the injuries, and if you just go back 10 games or so, they were right in the thick of the wild card race, and now losing, like, I think
they've lost 8 of their last 10.
8 out of 10. Okay, so that just kind of puts you out of it in a super competitive American League. Yeah. So what do the Angels do now? They basically have 2 weeks and a day before the trade deadline on August 1st. It's kind of make or break time. They have to have like a huge week, win like 6 or 7 of their next 8 or something. Otherwise, they're going to be firmly in the sell camp. And that means Shohei is going to be on the block and teams are going to be calling for him. So how do you think that situation is going to play out?
First of all, I don't think he gets traded at the end of the day. I think he stays with the Angels at the end of the day, partially because the asking price is going to be astronomical.
As it should.
As it should. But I think the teams that would be willing to do that for 6 months, or not even 6 months.
2 months.
2 months.
Plus the playoffs.
The teams that would be willing to do that also kind of need to have an idea that they've got a shot at re-signing him. And if they don't, they're not going to be willing to give up that same amount of capital, in my opinion. Like, the Dodgers are kind of in a prime spot. Like if the Dodgers do it, I bet you they could coax him back because he doesn't have to move. It's still on the West Coast. It's a better team that is now under the luxury tax threshold for this season, which means that their penalty for next season has reset. So they're in a prime position to go and get him. Now, the question is, what is it going to cost? And are there other teams that would be willing to do it? Because like maybe the Yankees could coax him to come back and they would be interested. I don't know. There's teams like the Rays that are supposedly thinking about making some kind of an offer. But Ohtani is not a normal guy.
He's not a normal rental is the key here. Like,
yeah.
I think teams are going to be willing to pay whatever it takes, even if they're only getting him for 2 months. And if that gives you the first crack at negotiating with him, if you're a team that he might go to, I mean, you have to be a competitive team, obviously, to be making this trade.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a good playoff run, wouldn't that be the biggest like selling point for him signing long term for that team?
You would think, yeah. And
so if you feel like you have a good shot, I say go after. Pay the big price. It's probably going to cost you a couple blue chip prospects, and I think some team's going to do it.
So where I'm kind of thinking that this is going to land as far as what it's going to cost. Funny enough, we actually just got a text asking about a very specific team that might be in on this. I think the answer is no on that team, but I kind of think of it like this. So when the Dodgers went and got Max Scherzer, one of the best pitchers in the league, and Trey Turner, the best shortstop in the league, for a 2-month rental, or I guess, did Trey have another year after that?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. But still, when that trade happened, what did the Dodgers give up? They gave up Josiah Gray. They gave up Keibert Ruiz. They gave up...
You're asking the tough questions. I don't remember that trade from 2 years ago right now.
Okay, well then let's just go to the Juan Soto trade because that's the more recent comp.
The Juan Soto trade's a little bit different, right?
Because he had 2 more years after.
2.5 years of Juan Soto.
But you got to think of it like this. With Ohtani, you're not getting one player for 2 months. You're getting 2 elite players for 2 months.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why it feels like the Scherzer and Turner trade is maybe a good starting point to look at.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because Ohtani as a hitter for 2 months is probably worth about the same as Trey Turner for 1.5 years as a hitter.
Yeah, probably more.
Nothing against Trey Turner. Phenomenal player. Ohtani is a little bit of a different breed. You're getting something a little bit different out of him. So for 2 months, you're more willing to go for it. Scherzer for 2 months is that season is probably about the same as well. So like that trade, which let me actually just pull that up on BREF real quick. I don't know why I didn't already have it up. But that trade kind of seems like the best starting point, and then you know that it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be so hard to estimate what the value is going to be, what a team would pay, because there really is no comp.
Well,
for
exactly.
a player like this becoming available. It's just unprecedented and
okay.
It's just so interesting.
So this trade actually kind of looks like a steal to me because it was Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz and Gerardo Carrillo and Donovan Casey. 2 prospects I've never heard of. Okay. But that's what the Nationals got in return for Scherzer and 1.5 years of Turner. Yeah, it kind of feels like it would have to be a lot more like the Juan Soto trade then.
The Juan Soto trade also is, that it's so early to tell how that one's turning out. So.
Yes, but at least as far as like pedigree of prospects, it kind of feels like that's about the same. Because it's like they got Mackenzie Gore and CJ Abrams and top prospects Robert Hassel and James Wood and another prospect in Harleen Susanna. So, and they got Luke Voigt.
we talked about that one last year as being the biggest return probably in any trade we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's what we're talking about with Ohtani.
And it feels like Ohtani's going to be the same.
Yeah.
So who has the prospects to be able to do that? The Dodgers. The Yankees honestly could.
Yeah.
The Rays. Matthew texted us and asked, "What about the Phillies?" And I feel like
that's interesting.
Andrew Painter would have to go back, like straight up.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that the top end of their system is quite good enough outside of maybe him and Mick Abel to really say, yeah, they have the quality of prospects. But that actually does raise a good question. The Angels are really, really struggling for pitching every year. Getting Andrew Painter and or Mick Abel is a return for Ohtani. Probably a pretty good return.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And it feels kind of Dombrowski-esque, right?
Mm-hmm.
He could pony up and go all in for this year because the Phillies are right there in the hunt at this point.
Yeah, I mean I just closed my standings tab to go to BREF. Dang it.
But yeah, the Phillies are 51-42. They're 10.5 out of the division, but they're close in the wild card.
They're only a half game out of the wild card right now.
Yep. Yeah.
And only a game out of the first wild card. Or half a game out of the first wild card, I guess. Because both San Fran... No, that'd be a full game. 0.5 plus 0.5. Yeah. That would be a really interesting move for the Phillies.
Yeah, the one issue with it is if Bryce Harper can't really play first base, even though he's going to try it, their DH position is kind of locked up.
Wait, is Harper not back yet?
He's been playing, but he's only DH'd. He's going to be playing first base for the first time.
Okay, so they were waiting until after the All-Star break to do that?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's going to be it's going to be interesting. Hopefully basically this week they get him at first and see how that goes so that if Dave needs to be making some calls, he's got time.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on from Ohtani. I think we're surely going to come back to him next week and the week after that, and probably the week after that. So plenty of time to discuss Shohei. Other sellers, though, there's some obvious ones. The worst teams in the league, like Oakland, Kansas City, Washington, Colorado. Those teams, they'll sell off some pieces, but there's not necessarily like difference makers on those teams. Maybe relievers, maybe a couple hitters here and there. Is there anyone standing out to you from any of those teams that like could be a nice trade chip?
Not really. The only person, I mean, Brent Rooker might get you a little bit of power as a bench guy, but like he's kind of fallen back to earth too. So it's like, I don't really know. Seth Brown, maybe from Oakland.
Yeah.
Ramon Laureano would be an interesting trade piece.
Yeah, I think he's hurt again, as usual.
See, that's the difficult part. But like Kansas City doesn't really have too many guys that I would like really think about. I mean, they've already moved their biggest piece in Aroldis Chapman. So
they can move like a Barlow, but nothing life changing.
And kind of the same in Washington. Although Washington does have
they have Jamer Candelario.
Yes.
He's a pretty good option if you need a third baseman.
Yeah.
St. Louis, I know you'll want to talk about this one a little bit more, so I left them out of this group. They are one of the worst teams in the league, and they have announced they are selling at this point.
Yeah.
So what do they actually have to sell?
So first of all, they recognize, and I think anyone with eyes recognizes that this is just kind of the way that the season has gone for the Cardinals is both slightly predictable and incredibly weird. Like pitching has been a problem. Incredibly predictable. Everyone saw it. I don't think they expected it to be quite this bad. But the hitting has also underperformed, and that's where the Cardinals' strength was. And so what Mo said here the other day was that we're selling, straight up selling. There's not going to be a change. We're not going to all of a sudden go on a hot streak and decide that we're going to hold steady. We are going to sell. Now, what they're going to do is retool to be competitive next year, which means that you cannot move the big core pieces that people might be interested in for a really, really big return of prospects. So Goldie and Arenado, they're going to stay put. The guys that are likely to move are the guys that are free agents at the end of the year. So Jordan Montgomery, who I think a lot of people would be interested in Jordan Montgomery as a fifth starter, is he's incredibly consistent. He's not dominant, but he's consistent. Jack Flaherty, his upside is really, really good, and he's been pitching well recently. He's also a free agent at the end of the year. Jordan Hicks is a free agent at the end of the year, and he's actually started taking on the closer role for the Cardinals and doing it really well. He's kind of found his dominance here in the last 2 months, and a lot of teams would be coming and calling for that. Outside of those guys, you've got kind of a logjam in the infield. So like guys like Alec Burleson and Juan Yepes might be available. Tyler O'Neill's probably available to help with the outfield logjam, assuming that he comes back and performs. Paul DeYoung could be someone that they try and shop. I don't know how many people would really be calling about him.
Yeah, those the first three guys you mentioned, the pending free agents, I think all those guys are surely going to get traded. It wouldn't make too much sense to hold on to any of them.
Yeah.
The remaining guys are the guys that all have like fairly low trade value. Like they're not going to bring you back a top 100 prospect.
Correct.
The guys you didn't mention, though, Tommy Edman and Brendan Donovan, those are players that other teams would be very interested in, I think.
And those are players that I guarantee are not available.
I don't know about that.
There's already been some statements that Mo has not come out right out.
The only players that he said that they wouldn't trade are Goldschmidt, Arenado, Nootbaar, and Walker, I think.
Yes, but he didn't say specifically they wouldn't trade Donovan, but he did in some side conversations with reporters say he can't imagine wanting to build a team without Brendan Donovan. So maybe Edman's available, but Donovan feels like he's staying straight up.
Yeah.
So Carlson could be on the move, and Carlson actually does have some trade value.
Just as you said that, I just got a notification from Bleacher Report saying Yankees eyeing Dylan Carlson.
Told you. He's a good player. He's not as dominant as he was expected to be as a prospect. I think he got a little overhyped, as did a lot of people in that class. Alex Kirilloff, Joey Bart, Trevor Larnach, for example. But he's a very capable center fielder. Not a complete liability at the plate, just doesn't have quite the power that he was expected to have. And so 250, 260 average just isn't really doing it. But I imagine some people will be interested in bringing him, and the Cardinals are looking for pitching, and more pitching that is controllable for the next couple of years.
And that's not like something that you just go out and find at Walmart. It's kind of like everyone needs pitching.
Mm-hmm.
So the team that feels like a match for me is the Marlins, because they are one team that seems to have a little bit more extra pitching. They've got guys like Jake Eater, Max Meyer, both coming off Tommy John surgeries. So they're just coming back this year, so they'll probably be fully ready next year. I feel like those are the type of guys that the Cardinals need to be targeting.
Yeah, and I was actually just looking at Jake Eater, and he's made, 7 appearances in this season since coming back. 3 down at A-ball, and then he's been pitching at Double-A for 4 games. And, I mean, obviously not elite right out the gate coming back from Tommy John. But this is a guy that is an incredibly, highly rated prospect. He's the number 2 overall prospect in the Marlins organization this year, according to Fangraphs. Left-handed pitcher, which teams can't have enough good lefty starters, it seems. And he's kind of comped a little bit to a potential comp of Spencer Strider, which if you could get a left-handed Spencer Strider, that's a shutdown pitcher.
Yeah, he was amazing before his injury in the lower levels of the minors. He was just absolutely tearing it up. Obviously,
and he was a fourth-round pick out of Vanderbilt. And really, if you pitch for Vandy, you're probably pretty good. So, but yeah, that would be a really intriguing option there. Or even like, I know he's hurt a lot so far. What have Sixto's injuries been? Is it like elbow or shoulder, or is it like fluky stuff? Because I don't remember.
It's definitely arm injuries.
Okay, so Sixto's probably a stay away from. But
yeah, he hasn't pitched in a while now.
Yeah. But I feel like there's some guys like that are names that we've already heard around the major league level that the Marlins could potentially move.
Yeah, but I feel like it has to be someone more like a Meyer and Eater, because they're not like pitching super well at the major league level. Those guys don't necessarily get traded. It doesn't really make sense.
No, like, unless your name's Pablo Lopez.
Yeah. I mean, they got a good return out of Pablo Lopez, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to be willing to pay up a lot. And I'll ask you a different, like, completely separate question.
All right.
That purely hypothetical, because the chances of this actually happening is pretty much zero. What do you think about the Cardinals actually just, like, blowing it up and getting massive returns for Arenado and Goldschmidt and trying to build their team a different way? Because all these little moves they're going to make, they can move the needle a little bit, but not so much that it might not matter.
So what they do. I'm going to try and answer this in the least biased way that I can. I don't think that would make sense in general, because if you blow it up, they're probably going to revert back to the same style of team that they have built previously. Whereas you focus on defense, you focus on guys who are just getting on base and pitching, pitch to contact, good defense, and you try and just win little baseball, which they kind of learned in the past like 5, 6, 7 years. That hasn't been working anymore with these big power pitchers, the home run being as important as it is recently. That's why they went out and got Arenado, went out and got Goldie, went out and got Wilson Contreras. And so they've been starting to build a team that is more like the current effective prototype of a team, which is you need power bats and the rest. And so I don't see the Cardinals getting sure prospects that can replace the power, that can bring it to the prototype of a team that is effective in today's game. So I think probably what they need to do is really pony up and trade a guy like a Tank Hentz or a Mason Wynn, not both, one of, and like a guy like Newt with him, and go get a big power pitcher to pair with your big power bats. That's what they need to do.
But that's like a buy move, though. So that's not something that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, and that's the problem. They need to make buy moves.
And that's exactly kind of what trading those big name guys, because okay, my monitor keeps just like flashing on me, so that's why I keep raising my hands like that. But if they do that, it's actually a chance to change the way that they've built their teams in the last half decade here. They could go out and actually get a power pitcher, which apparently they don't have, and they don't have anywhere like in their system or anything. So how do you get that? without trading a real piece.
You don't.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying is 2024 is going to look a lot like 2023 if they don't do something
Yeah.
about it.
The problem is I don't think John Mozeliak knows how to do it any other way. And so I think that's honestly the problem is we've been doing it Mozeliak's way for 15 years since Walt Jocketty was fired. And it's been great. Like, hell, there's been 1 World Series championship, 2 World Series appearances. There were 5 straight NLCS appearances. Like, there was dominant baseball teams in there that had a chance to win the World Series every year. Since 2015, that has not been the case. And Mo he's tried to start building a team a different way, but it's not worked. Like, he tried, basically the team we have now is his attempt at building the 2006 Cardinals again, the 2005 Cardinals again, with the MV3, with Albert, Edmonds, and Roland. You've got Goldie, Nato, and Contreras. That's what he tried to do. But you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice, is really the main point. Like, you can't just build the exact same team.
The game has changed too, right?
Yeah.
It's not what it was in 2006.
And so I don't think he really, I don't see a world in which John Mozeliak staying with the Cardinals is going to net a different style of team competing and being able to bring home a championship. I think the next time that the Cardinals make it to the World Series, he will not be the GM. But Bill DeWitt has said he will finish out his contracts through 2025. So if you read between the lines there, I don't see next year going all that well. Or 2025.
Yeah, I mean,
so
yeah, just looking at the whole situation, I just don't see, without some drastic moves, how they could improve that much more.
Yeah, I don't know.
They should be better next year.
Hopes and dreams.
Yeah, could be.
Hopes and dreams can throw 100 mile an hour, right?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. We'll take him.
Okay, so that's the Cardinals. There's some other teams that are sort of in the middle. Just we can hit on them quickly here. It's funny that the Cubs are being talked about as a buyer. Like, I'm just not really seeing it. I'm not seeing the team being super competitive at this point.
They're 8 out of both the division and the wild card. I don't see much of a path to taking the division for them. I mean, 8 games is definitely, you can come back from that. But outside of like Justin Steele and Marcus Stroman, and then a couple guys like Christopher Morel, it doesn't really feel like there's enough there that's going to be able to sustain the rest of the season if you go out and buy.
Yeah, it's been a struggle of a season. I mean, run differential, we always talk about that. Like, Cubs are the only team in the NL Central that has a positive run differential. So, there's probably a little unluck there. But overall, the team's just kind of mid at this point. Really disappointing season because they went out and they spent a lot in free agency. They got Jameson Taillon. They got Dansby Swanson. They were supposed to compete this year. They're really not.
Yeah, and part of it is that the free agent moves, they're kind of 50-50 on if those panned out. JMO has not been good.
Yikes, yeah.
Dansby has been quite good.
He's been quite good, yeah. So, you can't complain about that signing at all. There were other deficiencies with this team, and it's kind of like make or break week for them too, just like it is for teams like the Red Sox and the Mets and the Padres. Like, they're all sort of in the same position in the standings. Some of those teams are looking more on the buy side, but a lot of them could sell off here. And if those teams end up selling, it gets really interesting because the Cubs, the Padres, the Mets, they all have like very interesting pieces that could be traded.
Could Juan Soto get traded again? I doubt it.
The Juan Soto thing, I don't see any way that he gets traded because of the price they paid last year. and the fact that they have him for another year next year. You trade Juan Soto, there's no possible way like your team is going to be better next year.
Yeah. And honestly, this is another offense similar to the Cardinals that it doesn't really make sense how they've been performing. Like, they've been drastically underperforming. Like, Manny Machado in a vacuum, love him. I would want him on any team. Okay, he's on the team. In a vacuum, Xander Bogaerts, really good hitter, pretty good at defense. I want him on my team. Awesome, they're side by side. Juan Soto, one of the best hitters in the league in a vacuum. Put him on the team. Tatis, same thing. And now all of a sudden, like, with the four of them, this team not really scoring is kind of the problem. Like,
yeah, I mean, Machado's kind of picked it up. Soto's been really good.
Yeah,
like Tatis been pretty good. It's just like
it's just no one's hot at the same time. Yeah, and then with the pitching not really being all that great either. The pitching's actually been decent, but
going into the break, it looked like they were kind of figuring things out, and then they come out of the break and they lose 3 out of 4 to the Phillies. So it's like, okay, they're right back where they started. Yeah. They're not making any progress here. So I don't know. We never know what AJ Preller is going to do. I can't see them trading Soto, but maybe they trade Blake Snell, who's going to be a free agent. He's on some kind of run right now. He's pitched 21 straight scoreless innings, and he's been absolutely dominant since the end of May. He would be the best pitcher available, not named Ohtani, probably, if he was available. So I feel like they should consider that.
So let me ask you about a different team that we haven't talked about yet. If your name was Jerry Dipoto, what would you do?
I need a big bat if I'm Jerry Dipoto. That feels like the problem with the Mariners right now. Like, they've got Julio, they've got some other like solid players, but the offense as a whole kind of underwhelming. They're playing okay. They're hanging in the race here, but I want to get like the biggest bat I can find. I think I don't know who that is.
So, would you potentially trade a Logan Gilbert or a George Kirby in order to do that?
If it was Ohtani, I would definitely consider it.
What if it was, say, a young, controllable guy? This isn't a move that I hope happens. This is one that someone mentioned to me the other day. What about like a Logan Gilbert for a Tyler O'Neill and a Nolan Gorman? Both. Someone to take second base, even though he's not really great at second base defensively, over Colton Wong, who has been quite miserable this year, and a flyer on a really big power bat in Tyler O'Neill, who coincidentally was their prospect. He's not really got a whole lot of control left, and he's coming off injury, but it kind of helps offset the big power pitcher for a guy that can't really play defense. You get a guy that plays great defense and has power, a guy that has terrible defense at a position that you really need production, and a fantastic bat with 250, 40 home run upside, like ceiling, like, and you have an extra year of control on him than you do on Gilbert. You would have about really the same on Kirby.
I like that idea for sure. I think it would improve the Mariners, and they do right now feel like they have some pitching depth with the emergence of guys like Brian Wu, Bryce Miller.
You have Emerson Hancock coming up too.
Yeah.
So, like, it kind of feels like a move that could happen.
Yeah, like, that's a good one.
So, I don't know that I would like to see a Cardinals team without Nolan Gorman because I love the dude, but that could be a big trade that pays dividends for years to come.
Yeah. So, okay, let's move on to some non-trade stuff here and talk about some of these like surprise teams that have really taken the place of the teams like the Cardinals and the Padres and the Mets, who are supposed to be tops of their division. Instead, you've got teams like Miami and Arizona in the National League, Baltimore and Texas, that have just taken the league by storm, and they're playing their way into playoff position. Which of these teams, and I'll include Cincinnati in this, which of these teams can keep it up? And is any of them like a fluke and is going to really fall off here in the second half?
So I want to kind of separate this out into three categories real quick. So you have the teams that we expected to break out this year. Not to this level, but we expected to break out this year. That would be Texas, Baltimore, and Arizona. And that's because Texas went out and spent a lot of money to build a rotation to go with the middle infield they built last year. They had some good prospects that were coming up. So it felt like things were going to start going well. With Baltimore, last year, they had a surprising season where they were fairly good. Then they had more prospects that were coming up in the pipeline. Didn't really address pitching. They do have Grayson Rodriguez, but he's not really been a factor so far, but they're still in second place. You have Arizona with Corbin Carroll and a couple of those other young studs that we kind of expected to take a step forward. They're in second place. Then you get Miami, who we did not expect to be good. In fact, I think we expected the opposite.
Yeah.
And they are pitching their way to second place.
And surprisingly not having a terrible offense. That's really
we actually sort of predicted, because
I don't think I did.
Well, you and I both thought they would be better than last year offensively, because guys like Soler, guys like Avisail Garcia actually like regressing to their norm, which was better than what they did last year. So we thought there would be some improvement offensively. Jazz, unfortunately, has been hurt a lot of the year, so he's not really been a part of that. But this is a surprise team. Then you have Cincinnati, who's in a different category all their own, where they were the team that we expected, which was absolute garbage. And then all of a sudden, about a month and a half ago, they started calling up. Spencer Steer was on the roster the whole season, but they brought up Matt McClain. They brought up Andrew Abbott. They brought up Ellie De La Cruz. And things started to click. And they went on a hot run. And it's really not ended. Like, they pulled off a bit.
Kind of did.
They kind of
did. The Brewers kind of cooled them off in a big way by beating them 5 out of 6 before and after the break here. So taking the sails out of the amazing new Big Red machine.
But they're still right there, and these guys are talented enough that they could get back in it and take the division. Wouldn't be surprised. So those are the three different categories there, because I just wanted to differentiate, because those teams are not all equals. Your question was, are any of them going to fall back to earth? I kind of feel like Miami's pitching is actually maybe going to improve, because Sandy is actually going to be a little bit better in the second half than he was in the first, because he's not been pitching the way that Sandy Alcantara pitches. I don't trust their offense still. I really think that they might kind of fall off. I don't know that they'll make the postseason. They might still finish second or third in the division, but I don't think Miami's a playoff team. Cincy is weird. Like, they feel fluky. It feels like beginner's luck. I feel like next year they'll be good, but Andrew Abbott, I mean, I went to the game on, Saturday, and Andrew Abbott pitched, and he has been lights out since he's come up. And the last, 2 appearances of his, he's kind of been a little rocky. This time, his fastball, he could not locate it to start the game. Very first pitch of the game, fastball, Christian Yelich drives it opposite field for a home run. Next batter, fastball, double. And it just, the first 5 batters of that game were all over his fastball. He only gave up 1 in that inning, but it feels like he's about to hit his first trouble patch, or is in his first trouble patch. And who do they have pitching outside of him? Graham Ashcraft?
huge problem. Yeah, with
Like,
Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo are out, when
mhm.
Andrew Abbott is leading your rotation, and then you've got other like very questionable arms like Ben Lively and Brandon Williamson. Like it's not the pitching is quite bad, and they're relying on a whole bunch of rookies who are probably going to hit some rough patches along the way. They're not all going to just never hit any struggle and just carry this team to the World Series or something. Like I don't know. I'm not buying the Reds right now, even though
Yeah.
I want them to do
And
well.
at the same time, the offense is kind of going through the same thing because the Reds were one hit on Saturday.
Yeah, they
It
scored
was
3 runs over the weekend.
Yep, it was Freddie Peralta pitching on Saturday specifically, and the only hit was a broken bat single, a broken bat infield single. So like they didn't even put it into the outfield. So
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Was it TJ
It
Friedel?
was,
Maybe
I think it was Jake Fraley.
Fraley. Okay, that sounds right. But yeah, so it sounds like their kind of beginner's luck is wearing off, and they probably will fall back to earth. Miami is kind of not sure how I feel about them. I actually don't think that they're gonna really tank in the second half. Like not tank in like the typical sense of the word, just like bottom out. I don't think they're gonna bottom out in the second half. But Texas, Baltimore, and Arizona, I think they're in it to win it this year. All 3 of them.
Yeah. Especially Baltimore has really impressed me. They're just a game behind the Rays now, which is so impressive when you remember how the Rays started this season. That Baltimore's been able to track them down, and today Grayson Rodriguez got re-promoted after he dominated in the minor leagues after really struggled his first trip in the majors. This guy's ceiling is like what the Cardinals are looking for. You know, every team is looking for a young 22-year-old that throws 101 miles per hour as a starter. Like the guys,
you're Hunter Green, you're Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah, they're not everywhere, and he's definitely going to be really good. It's just a matter of time, and maybe he unlocked something in this latest trip in the minors. That's going to go a long way for Baltimore continuing to contend in the best division in baseball, because they don't have like a whole bunch of elite arms in the rotation right now. Kyle Bradish has been really good this year, but then they have got other guys like Kyle Gibson and
Wells.
Well, Tyler Wells has been really good. So getting some good performances, but Grayson could be the difference maker for this club.
And then behind him, hopefully at some point, DL Hall kind of figures it out and comes up.
I think he's hurt.
Is he?
Yeah.
Hopefully he figures out how to stay healthy and next year comes up and helps him out.
Hopefully, yeah.
Because he's a big lefty too, right?
He's a lefty. I think he may be done as a starter. It seems like he's had too many injuries.
That sucks.
I want to stick on this division, though, because I think it's one of the most interesting storylines of the second half, because all these teams could potentially be in buy mode. The Red Sox are hot right now. They've passed the Yankees. Yankees seem like the team that are struggling the most without Aaron Judge. Do you think they can get themselves back in this? They're 9 games back. They're in the wild card race, but like when you look at their roster right now, it's kind of like, what is going on? Like, where are the Yankees? We got like Oswald Peraza and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and I mean,
Can I point out here? IKF has actually been pretty good for the Yankees.
I don't know about pretty good.
For okay. IKF, he's been pretty good. This is like some of the best IKF we've ever seen. I mean, it's not really all that impressive, but I just think it's funny that like the roller coaster that Yankees fans have been on with IKF.
I feel like they're on a roller coaster with every player, aren't they?
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, this Yankees team, I saw something earlier today that was the areas in which the Yankees are looking to improve.
It was every single area of the team.
Outfield,
there's like catching,
catcher, starting and relieving.
Yeah.
And then the left side of the infield.
Yeah.
So basically, the only guys that they're comfortable with, based on that, is Rizzo, Glaber, and Stanton at DH, but not in the outfield.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So not feeling good about the Yankees at the moment.
Now, they did get a nice acquisition in Carlos Rodon actually returning to the field.
Yeah.
So that will hopefully for the Yankees help their rotation stabilize a little bit, because if he can get going and you get Garrett Cole and Rodon and the guy that had the perfect game that I wish didn't have the perfect game, if he can stay somewhat relevant, really you're just kind of waiting on Sevy.
Severino issue. He has a 7.38 ERA. What is going on?
Yeah,
makes no sense to me.
It's like Sevy and Clark Schmidt are kind of the two.
Clark Schmidt's been good, actually.
It still feels like he'd be one of the two most at risk of getting bumped.
I think
Sevy,
Herman better watch out.
You think Herman better watch out?
Yeah, he has not been very good other than the perfect game.
That's fair. Also, people hate him. So
yeah, that too.
Although people also hate Hal Steinbrenner, so maybe they have that in common and they're going to keep him. Hal doesn't want to be the most hated person in the Yankees org.
Yeah. You got to have the scapegoat, I guess.
Exactly. And Cashman can't be it.
No.
So
never Cashman.
Never Cashman. What about Boston?
Boston feels like a lot more of a complete team right now than the Yankees. And their offense is just really clicking right now with guys like Yoshida, who's like amazing. He had 8 straight multi-hit games. Then he had one day where he didn't get a hit, and then the next day he had 3 hits. So guy is just hitting everything, hitting for a little bit of power too.
Which is the thing that before the season a lot of people were worried he wasn't going to have, was power.
Yeah, but he's a guy that averaged like 29 home runs a year in Japan. I don't understand what they were worried about.
Japan's basically AAA.
Okay. Well, if you hit 29 home runs at AAA, you're probably going to hit for some power in the majors too.
Yeah, he's already got 11 home runs in the season. He's basically on pace to hit about 19 or 20.
Sure.
So,
about average power, but then with a really good batting average, OBP skills, and what more do you want?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I like Yoshida. I'm just saying what other people have said.
After we went to the Red Sox game, I think I picked Tristan Cassis to hit a home run in one of those games. He did not. But since the All-Star break, he's hit a home run in every single game, all 3 games.
Really?
He's starting to really heat up. He had a 153 BABIP in the first half of the season. And he'd been doing everything like perfectly. Great plate discipline, hits the ball really hard. I think he's going to just start breaking out here in the second half. And I like this Red Sox team after hating on them all preseason and saying like what is going on with the pitching, and pitching's still a little bit of an issue, obviously, but the lineup can kind of carry them. They've had Brian Bayo and Cutter Crawford be really good. James Paxton surprisingly is healthy right now and pitching well. Other than that, like, I don't know. This team feels like they're gonna go out and maybe get another arm, and that would be huge.
So, not that I want Matthews' guy to disappear from the team, but is there a point where Trevor Story is going to be back this year, or is he just out for season?
No, he's supposed to be coming back sometime.
So would he take over at shortstop then over Yu Chang?
Absolutely, yeah.
And are we at the point where Trevor Story would be an upgrade? Because like I know what he was before he got hurt, and now he's coming off an injury. Like I don't know, would he actually be an upgrade over Yu Chang or Christian Arroyo? Because the way I see it, Yu Chang's probably not leaving the lineup. It's going to be Arroyo that bumps. It's just who's playing where in the infield.
Yeah, I mean,
Arroyo is the worst player out of the two. You can't tell me he's not.
I mean, they're both not stellar players, but
yeah, but Arroyo's the worst player.
okay, fine. I think Trevor Story, like, he deserves some credit for his track record and stuff. Like, you want Trevor Story in the lineup. You don't want either of Yu Chang or Christian Arroyo playing every day at shortstop, or Kike Hernandez, which didn't work out at all.
Yeah.
I think he's at risk of being DFA'd, actually.
What if we put Adam Duvall at shortstop?
Adam Duvall can play everywhere.
Yeah, I mean...
He plays center field. He can catch.
Yeah.
He can play shortstop. Why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, this is weird. I just looked at roster resource, and it legitimately just only has 3 guys in the rotation on roster resource right now.
Yeah, it's a little rough right now with all the injuries. They literally have 4 starting pitchers on their injured list right now. And Tanner Houck, Corey Kluber, Chris Sale, Garrett Whitlock. So I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be filling all their starts here.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what they did when we were there, is they had, Brendan Bernardino.
Yeah, and then they had Nick Pivetta do the bulk thing. So
yeah, so
that's probably what's going to happen.
They're probably going to end up doing that, and then have like a Josh Winkowski or a Richard Blyer try and do it for another day.
Yeah.
But all right, what else we got on here?
We've already been going for an hour. We probably got 10 other teams we could talk about. So let's talk about some specific players that are kind of
trying to do some cool stuff.
Luis Arias trying to hit 400. He's kind of tailed off a bit here, but he's still at about 380.
Yeah, I think last time I checked was maybe 4 days ago. He was at 381. He is... It loads. Please load. It's not loading. He is 380 as of today.
380, so he's got to get really hot for a bit, which is obviously possible given his skill set. Being hot for like the next 2.5 months, that's going to be quite the challenge. So I want to see it, though.
Is it just me, or does giving this guy a 60 grade on his hit tool seem like a little bit of an underrating?
Yeah,
when he was
I feel
a prospect?
like that was definitely wrong. Like, this is what an 80 hit tool looks like, right?
I also think that they messed up his game power as well, because they gave him a 30, and I really think they should have gave him a 20 future.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really tough for Arias to actually get to 400 now. If this guy can keep above 380, that's going to be phenomenal. I mean, it's literally going to be the best hitting season since 1994, Tony Gwynn, when he hit 394, and then the season was shortened due to the strike.
Like, you haven't had any 380 seasons in recent memory?
Not
Didn't
that
like
I could
Joe
think
Mauer
of.
hit like 380 or something?
I don't think so.
Ichiro?
I thought 350 was about max.
I'm going to just check on the last like highest averages. Anyways,
like 380 is just a number that like I can't even think about the last time that I've seen 380 in June, let alone for a full season.
Yeah.
But another guy that we're kind of looking at, can he do it, is Ronald Acuna Jr., who, as of right now, he has 23 home runs, right? 23 home runs and 43
steals.
Which is, he's already passed his max steals in a season, which he set in 2019 when he stole 37. Can he get to 40-80? Like 44, if he gets to 40 home runs and joins the 40-40 club, that in and of itself is going to be insane. But
because the 40-40 club is like on one hand you can count that.
Yeah. But if he keeps going the rate he went in the first half for steals, he'd be about 70, 75 steals. Is there a world where you see Ronald close enough that he just starts taking off all the time and trying to get to that 80?
I legitimately think he's trying to steal as many bases as he possibly can. Every time he gets on base, he's trying to steal second base. So I kind of see it as a very legitimate possibility that he could go 40-80 this season.
And so he's actually closer to on pace with home runs. So, which is going to be hard enough just getting to 40 there.
But 40-60 seems incredibly realistic, right?
Well, I still think like 30 home runs, obviously in the bag. 35 seems pretty probable. 40, I think, is going to be a little tough to get to that number. I think he's going to finish the season right around 41 or 42 is kind of what it's feeling like to me. So, like, I'm kind of more worried that he's not going to get 40 home runs than I am that he's not going to get 80 steals.
Okay. Chipper Jones hit 364 in 2008.
Really?
And Barry hit 370 in 2002.
Yeah, Barry doesn't count. He was on steroids. That affects your contact, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He took the steroids for the hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. I take those all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, but speaking of Acuna, that Braves offense, if you want to watch a very pleasing baseball team, you watch the Braves every day, and they score 4 runs in the first inning most nights, and it's just fun. Like their entire lineup as a whole has a 800, like an 830 OPS this season. So they're basically like, it's a lineup of legit like all stars, and that's what it actually was. Like their whole lineup is basically all stars, and the secondary guys chip in too and are awesome. Can anyone like catch the Braves? Do you see the Rays or the Orioles or the Dodgers or anybody stacking up with the Braves and winning more games than them by the end of the year?
Winning more games than them? No. Now, if you were to ask me if they could compete against them in the postseason, yes.
That's a different question. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different question. But no, I think the Braves are hands down the best regular season team this year. And I mean, technically they just kind of passed Tampa for the best record recently. And Tampa is currently only one back in the win column. They are 5 back in the loss column. So, well, I guess technically that means that they passed by best record a while ago. But I don't see anybody outpacing Atlanta this year. I mean, Atlanta has already scored over 500 runs. There's only 1, 2, 3 other teams in the league have scored 500 runs so far. Can you name them without looking?
500 runs?
500 runs.
And
there's 4 total. The Braves are 1, so there's 3 others.
Texas.
Right? Texas has the most runs scored in the majors at 551, by the way. The Braves are 514. The Rays are 520.
And
I'll give you a hint. This one is the lowest out of the top 4.
I'm going to say the Diamondbacks.
It is not the Diamondbacks.
Are they close?
The Diamondbacks are at 458. So not really close, but they're honorable mention. Because they're basically the best of the next. Actually, I think other than the Angels, other than the Angels, the Diamondbacks are the best of the next. You're in the right division, though.
The Dodgers.
The Dodgers have scored 506 runs.
Okay, yeah.
So But yeah, and that's a big part of why I don't think anyone is going to catch up to the Braves. Like, I realize runs scored does not equal wins, but when you're scoring that many runs, you rack up a lot of wins.
You win blowouts, basically. Like, good teams win a lot of blowouts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it feels like. The Braves are playing like a couple blowouts a night. They don't have to use their best relievers in those games. Everyone's rested. They actually have good starting pitching, and they've been doing it without Max Fried, who's coming back kind of shortly. And I don't know, like, if you're the Braves, you're sitting in such a good spot. You don't need to make like a massive move. You can just make some little moves and improve
I
the
think that's
bullpen.
exactly what they're going to do, is make little moves to refresh the bullpen, bolster a couple of the weaker arms there. But like, you're not going to touch the lineup, period.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to look at a bench bat or like a bench speed guy, maybe. But I mean, you don't even need a bench speed guy. You got lineup speed guys. It's like, Albies isn't slow. You got Acuna.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's so hard to find a flaw in this Braves team right now. Like, they're there. I'm sure they are. But I can't find it. So. All right. Any last minute things?
I think there's just like one more team that we didn't talk about at all in this conversation, and that makes sense to me because I feel like they've just been flying under the radar for the last 2 months, and that's the Giants, who are quietly right there in the thick of things. Are they like just behind Arizona?
They are ahead of Arizona by a half a game.
They're ahead of Arizona now. So
while
they
Arizona are only a game and a half back of the Dodgers.
Yeah, so they're right in the wild card position, and they're absolutely in striking distance for winning the division too.
Yes. San Francisco. I don't really understand how they're here. I do, but like, just initial thought, I have no idea how they're here. Then you start looking a little deeper, and they're here in a similar reason as Miami. They are pitching really, really well. But yeah, like, I think they've given up like the third least number of runs in the majors. Maybe fourth or fifth. About fifth least.
I mean, that's pretty impressive, especially like when you consider they don't have the big names. They have Logan Webb, but beyond him, they're just like, they play the matchup so well.
You've got Anthony Desclafani.
Yeah, and Alex Wood and Alex Cobb. Like, these aren't aces. It's amazing that they're able to do this.
They're doing so they're doing with pitching this year what they did with hitting a couple years back, where they've just got these guys who, they're older, they've been decent, but they're just pitching out of their minds right now. And it just really, really reminds me of when Posey came back. Yeah, 2021, Posey's final season, with B. Craw, Brandon Belt, Evan Longoria, and that offense clicked. Well, this pitching staff is clicking. They need a power bat. If they get a power bat that actually stays hot for the second half of the season, I think they could take this division, and I wouldn't be terribly shocked. But like, their big like power bat acquisition of the offseason, Mitch Haniger, not really panning out to be exactly what they wanted, which that's the main reason why, is he's hurt. And so that's the move that Farhan needs to make to put them in a position to win the division.
Yeah, Shohei would be ideal for the Giants. I just don't think they're going to make that move. That doesn't seem like a very Farhan move.
Yeah.
To just like trade all the prospects.
They are getting some improvements from within with Patrick Bailey coming up. He's showing some power as a catcher. And you're getting some guys that are producing that are some pretty young guys there. And Blake Sable has been hitting fairly well. I think he might have cooled off a bit, but like over what you were throwing out at catcher, I'd take those two pretty much any day. So
okay, yeah. So second half, there's lots to look at. We'll be hitting on more of this stuff in the coming weeks, and I think next week we're gonna do a deep dive on the trade deadline. You got anything else before we say goodbye for today?
nah.
Okay.
I thought long and hard about that. I got nothing.
Okay. Sounds good.
Right.
With that, yeah, we'll talk to you next week. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.